Hello, underdogs and usurpers. My name is TV Sky, and did you guys watch Sullard 1's blindfolded run of Punch-Out on the Wii at SGDQ this year? I just, like, that, I literally just saw that on stream just now. That's one of the most amazing goddamn things I have seen in... Anyway, that's not really what we're here to talk about. I'm just saying catch up on that if you can get to it. Anyway, there's a new champion in League of Legends. The thing we're supposed to be talking about... Actually, he even did the Donkey Kong thing. Like, he blindfolded. This guy... He spent, like, 10 minutes just navigating the menus because he couldn't see them. Then he gets into the fight and he's just like, pow, 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 boom, knocks out Donkey Kong, like the optional heart... Anyway... What's the deal with Qiyana? What's the deal with Qiyana? That's the video I'm making is right now, what's the deal with Qiyana? Now, Qiyana, I've talked about her on the channel before. You may have seen that particular video, which is mostly just like a long complaint, which is sometimes a bit of a theme on this channel. I have had my complaints about Qiyana, and we will not revisit them here. If you're so inclined, you can go and watch my video where I kind of complain about some of the underlying concepts behind Qiyana's character design, and some of my complaints about the general direction that character design is going in League of Legends. But for the purposes of this video, I'm going to take the design seriously as it is, and we're going to be talking about what it is about and what the character herself is about, because this is what's the deal videos, and that's the point of those. I'm a little amped up from that goddamn Punch-Out run, I tell you. Anyway, Qiyana, the Empress of the Elements, among many other things that she is also an announcement champion. She's the announcement of a new region that's being added to League of Legends, Ixtal, or I don't know how you're supposed to technically be pronouncing it. Basically, a South American-inspired jungle kingdom that has lived in isolation from the rest of Runeterra for centuries, because basically they've observed correctly that the rest of Runeterra keeps getting fucked up by, like, the Void, and the Darkin, and the Rune Wars, and God knows what the hell happened on the Shadow Isles. So they've just basically decided, fuck this shit, we're out, no contact with other people, just let the jungle kill them, and we stay within our own borders. And that's been the status quo, apparently, for Ixtal for many, many centuries. And the reason why Ixtal is breaking out as a region now is, well, it's because of Qiyana. Or rather, it's because of Piltover, honestly. Piltover has started making inroads into Ixtal, and I'm pronouncing like 14 different ways. One of them has to be right. And are, cutting down logs for their mines and all kinds of stuff. And the Ixtalians are understandably not super jazzed about that. And Qiyana is rising to prominence as a leader who's taking advantage of that outside threat. And in order to clarify some of that, let's take a look at her bio. So, Qiyana's bio is basically, she's like the youngest child of a ruling family. Like, so she's definitely a noble, and she's like always been the youngest. She's always been like, well, I'm never gonna inherit a goddamn thing because like I'm literally gonna be dead before all of my siblings are done passing stuff down between them and passing it down to their own children. Nothing's gonna be left for me. Oh well, that sucks. But then it turns out she's like a really super crazy good elementalist. And like, elemental magic is basically what Ixtal do. Like, that's their thing, is they do a whole bunch of elemental magic. That's like ancient arts and secrets, yada yada, passed on for generations. Qiyana, as it turns out, is like literally just absolutely the best at them. She's incredibly good at it, and now she's going, hang on, I'm a super powerful sorcerer, but I'm not going to be ruler of anything or inherit anything, and like pretty much all of my older, dumber, less competent siblings are going to take everything before I get a chance to have it. Actually, no, screw that. I don't want to do that. So she starts doing what, teenagers do, which is what she is at this point in there. She starts acting out. Eventually, her oldest sister, Inessa, gets kind of tired of Qiyana being a shitty little bitch. So she's like, we're going to have a duel, you and I. I'm 12 years older than you. I'm going to kick your entire ass. But she was wrong about that. It was her entire ass that got kicked. Qiyana completely decimates her in a duel, unseating the eldest sister, basically, in the family hierarchy, and that's not well looked upon. In fact, it's kind of frowned upon. In fact, it's generally considered a really stupid, bad thing to do, that you shouldn't do. So the traditions of the society kick in, and Qiyana is basically like, no, you need to be humble, piss off. Qiyana, obviously, very upset about this. She feels constantly in her life that she's denied something that is owed her, her birthright. Whether it's her right to rule over Ixtal or her right to be recognized and respected. And as it turns out, in winning the duel with her eldest sister, people have started to take notice of her. They have started to respect her. And she likes that a lot. Oh, she does love that particular recognition. So when the Piltovarians, I think it's Piltovans. I think the Piltovans is the correct in-universe pronunciation. But the people from Piltover start showing up, fucking up the jungle by, like, uprooting stuff, cutting down trees, mining and stuff. Most of Ixtal is like, well, we're isolationists, so we're not gonna give a damn about what the hell goes on outside the jungles. Just let them do whatever. And Qiyana's like, they're disrespecting us. I'm gonna fuck them all up. And, well, yeah, she does that. She basically raids a mining site, killing everyone, except for one person who runs away and tells the story about this terrifying mage who came out of the jungle and smashed everything. And Qiyana goes home like, I fucked them all up. Look how cool I am. And everyone's like, what the fuck did you do? You weren't supposed to fuck them up. You were supposed to fucking stay hidden so nobody finds out that we're here. Now they're all gonna know we're here. And Qiyana's like, yeah, isn't it great? And they're like, no, it sucks, actually. You need to be imprisoned, in fact. But she isn't imprisoned. The elementalists of the court, the sorcerers who practice the same magics that she practices so well, come to her defense and say, hang on, this lady, like, literally, like, killed like 100 people and smashed up giant machines that we otherwise have trouble dealing with. Maybe we shouldn't be throwing her in jail. So she gets to stay out of jail on the promise that she will never ever again go looking for the Piltovans. Like, she'll never cross paths with an Outlander. And she's like, okay, I sure definitely won't immediately disobey everything that you've just told me to do, because I'm not the kind of person who disobeys tradition. And so she goes off with a large fan base of people who are like, hey, this lady is pretty cool. She can smash stuff up and protect us from the outsiders. That's nice. I will throw my political power behind her. And so she's building herself up as the next Empress of Ixtal, the ruler of Ixtacoan, the greatest elementalist that the world has ever seen. And she's also like 16 or 17 years old. I don't actually know exactly how old she is in the lore, but she's pretty damn young. Like, she's a teenager with a big chip on her shoulder about her siblings getting more attention than she does. And she's got, like, a hell of a lot of actual magical power with which to back up her claims to fame. Which leads us on to the story Fit to Rule, which basically outlines one of the kind of things that Qiyana likes to get up to when she's attempting to screw over the entire world for her own benefit. As the story goes, we'll not go into complete details, Qiyana comes to an outlying city of Ixtal, which has been under assault by miners recently. Like, miners who are coming for the resources and who are pretty upset that Ixtal keeps killing the miners. Like, they're upset about basically what Qiyana has done, which is essentially declare war on the miners and the prospectors and the explorers. And so the city is in a bit of a panic because, like, these giant Hextech mining machines are assaulting them, and they're really difficult to deal with the magic that they have. And Qiyana shows up, hey, you know what? I'm super great at elemental magic. I can smash those machines no problem. I should be the prefect, that is the governor of a sort, of this place. And the elders are like, well, one of your sisters is already prefect, though. And Qiyana's like, the fuck you say? And her sister turns up, and Qiyana's like, you should really definitely let me be the governor of this place. And her sister's like, well, I can't, because literally, like, the rulers of our country said that you're not supposed to do that, and I'm supposed to be the prefect. And Qiyana's like, but seriously, though, I'm better. And she's like, yeah, well, you know, I can't really do anything about that. And her sister's kind of insecure, and Qiyana exploits that. When Qiyana leaves the outpost, instead of using her magic to close the path to the outpost, to hide it, to protect it from the outsiders, she conveniently happens to forget to do that, and the outsiders find the village and attack it. And Qiyana's sister's like, holy shit, we're being attacked. I'm terrified. I'm a noble from a royal family. I don't know how to fight stuff. And Qiyana shows up and is like, you know, what if I was the governor instead of you right now? Wouldn't that be good? Like, that, I could fuck them all up. And her sister, eventually being terrified and not really prepared to deal with what's going on, is like, yeah, you probably should be the prefect, actually. And Qiyana thinks to herself, I should. I deserve it. So, what we have in this story is Qiyana engineering a crisis for herself to solve in order to bolster her own power in the community, but to basically invoke emergency powers of, well, the village was under attack. What was I supposed to do? Let them die? Oh, never mind that they were under attack because I let them there. And that's well, it carries some historical implications that perhaps we'll get into in just a second. So what we have here with Qiyana, why is my search bar there? What we have here with Qiyana is a young upstart dictator. That's basically the story that's being told here, is someone who has a tremendous amount of power, who is very impatient to wield it, and who is absolutely 110% for certain convinced of their own fitness to rule, their inherent fitness to rule, their, as it were, genetic superiority to everyone else. That's kind of where the story is going a little bit. This person who is convinced that she's inherently superior to everyone around her, who deserves to rule, who deserves to have power. Not someone who needs to earn it, but someone who needs to make other people see that she deserves it. Now, that is the kind of characterization, because she's still, relatively speaking, a child or a very young character, that reads a little bit differently than if it had been like some 27-year-old general in the army, or colonel in the army trying to take over the country. It reads a little different when it's an imperious, impatient, kind of bratty 17-year-old who unfortunately has the, relative equivalent power of a weapon of mass destruction at her fingertips. And that makes Qiyana kind of interesting to me, actually. And this is where I'm extremely tempted to return to my previous complaints about how it's a bit of a pity that they just went with, like, another pretty girl character for Qiyana, because there seems to be so much more going on there that you could meaningfully explore if you were willing to take a different tack on how you design your characters, Riot. But I'm not going to get into that now. I spent like a whole half-hour video or something on that, so we're going to talk about her from a different angle instead. Qiyana is an upstart dictator. She's someone who is desperate for recognition and respect and power. She knows that she's pretty much the greatest person on the face of the earth, or rather that's the delusion of which she has convinced herself. She needs other people to see her as such. So, in terms of her character design, something I'm kind of missing on her is self-decoration. Like, we've got the crown. The crown is a great touch because, like, she's wearing a crown all the time. It does tell you something about how she sees herself as a person. I deserve to wear the crown, therefore I will. I don't care that I haven't actually been crowned yet. I would have loved to see that particular aesthetic expand a little bit, because what you typically see with dictators, like all over the world, all throughout history, is dictators are very happy and often quite desperate to adorn themselves with military honors, with honorary degrees from universities, with medals and all kinds of posts and all kinds of important titles to sort of buff up their own perceived prestige and power. I would have liked to see that a little bit more from Qiyana in terms of her design, because Qiyana has an extremely simple character design. It's a strength in some sense, which we'll talk about once we get to the animation, but what I would have liked to see is more of her putting on the airs of already being ruler, like dressing less like someone who's sort of preparing for a exotic gymnastics competition, and more like someone who's like, yeah, I live in pomp and circumstance. I'm dressed in all the finery that I deserve, like the most luxurious silks or the most like gorgeous clothing you can wear. I would have liked to see her, for example, wear more gold. I think she's wearing a good amount, but more gold, like more decorations, something that's more extravagant, or something that's for more military bearing. Like I said, dictators have a tendency to be desperate to associate themselves with the power of the military. First of all, because in most dictatorships, the military is what keeps them in power, but also because that particular association, a soldier fighting for their country, someone who deserves respect and recognition, people of that particular mindset tend to crave that kind of recognition on a very visceral level. It tends to be very important to them. I would have liked to see some of that explored a little bit more with Qiyana. With Qiyana, they've gone for a little bit of an interesting mix going on, because like in the head space, we've got like the extravagant, like the green powerful makeup, the exquisite lashes, the golden eyes, and the crown, and then this beautifully coiffed hair, like this very distinctive and particular and difficult hairdo that clearly requires some kind of maintenance. Like, she's got the curls going on, this some kind of very well treated, very luxurious hair. Okay, that's good. Then we get down here and it's more like, this looks very casual all of a sudden, where I would have liked to see more of a regal posture and regal air and a regal attitude perpetuated down through her. Now, fortunately, in her animation and her general character attitude, they're making up a lot of that arrogant bitch part of her that kind of needs to be more present in her character design, I feel. But generally speaking, there's also some good stuff going on with Qiyana. I still don't agree with the particular choice of sexualization that they've gone with, but never mind that. I love the detail on her dress. See, Ixtal is an old province of Shurima. Like, in the ancient days when the sun disk was high and the Ascended walked the earth and yada yada, before the whole Darken War thing happened, Ixtal was a vassal state of Shurima. And so, something I was really pleased to see is that Qiyana's dress and her aesthetic in terms of the way that she dresses is heavily inspired from Shurima. And that makes perfect sense in terms of if Ixtal is a region that was under Shuriman rule for many, many centuries, its upper class would naturally have adopted the aesthetics and the look and the visual design of the nobles of the ruler state of Shurima. Like, we see this happen all throughout history, is that whoever is has most power, most control, tends to be imitated by those who aspire to power. So, the nobles of Ixtal mimic the aesthetics of the rulers of Shurima, and you can see that aesthetic on display in people like Asir, Nasus, and that's done really well with the dress here, which is, again, I wish it was less understated, but I do love the, like, the teal with gold trim thing they've got going on that really connects Ixtal aesthetically to Shurima. That's a really good move. So, there's a reason why Qiyana looks like this in several ways. Like I said, I wish she was wearing something more elaborate than this, but that would probably have been pretty hard to do on an animation front because she's a hula hooper. Like, she fights with this giant-ass chakram, and she has some really elaborate, very gymnastic animation going on with that. And I can kind of see the point there in her being so athletic, so gymnastic. Like, she's flipping over and she's jumping and she's doing all kinds of spins and twirls and dance moves in a lot of her animation. And that makes perfect sense to me from the perspective of you want to show that she is young. You want to show that this is a bit of a child with a big head thing going on. Literally a bit of a big head, in fact, in her case. So I can see why, from a gameplay design perspective and in terms of the animation that she needed in order to carry off her kit in-game, that they wouldn't want to go with the more elaborate character design that I was talking about. In fact, she's probably one of the most modern-looking champions that we've had in a very long time. She's wearing a one-piece with some leggings and sandals. Like, I see that when I walk down the streets on the daily, especially nowadays when it's bloody hot outside and I have to record my videos at like 10 o'clock at night just so I don't boil in my own room. Anyway, bit of a sidetrack there. Something that I do enjoy about Qiyana is that they went, like, I've talked about how she's pretty much just a retread of the same sexy lady archetype that they've gone for before. One place where that criticism is not quite fair is in terms of her particular body morphology. Rather than going with the hourglass-shaped babe that they usually do, they've gone with something that's more pear-shaped, which is bottom-heavy, in fact, which, in other words, thick. If you wish to use the parlance of the youths these days. And I think it works for her for two reasons. First of all, because she has that athletic thing going on. Second of all, because she's doing the hula hooping thing. Like, it makes sense to really emphasize her hips and her waist when she has that whole aesthetic thing going on. It also sets her apart a little bit from, like, an older, more mature character where you could have the hourglass shape be sort of more even across the board, to have her top be a little bit underemphasized. Like, you can kind of see how, relative to the size of her hip area here, like, her torso is practically tiny, and I can see the idea of sort of de-emphasizing that a little bit to give her a sort of more young, developing kind of feel to her, where I just kind of wish they hadn't gone with the, you know, meticulously outlined titties and a boob cleavage window, because that kind of undercuts it. I would have liked to see them make her physique a little bit more explicitly young rather than well-developed, but that's a discussion for a whole other time. Let's have a look at some of her animations, because like usual, even characters for whom I have all kinds of criticism, I tend to love their animation. Now, I do wish that the animation tool on Team GG, it can't quite... The thing about Qiyana and a lot of the new champions is that their animation cycles are broken into so many discrete elements. It can be really hard to get a feel for the full development of the animation, because you're basically seeing, like, you're seeing the start of the attack, which is this, which doesn't quite load correctly, I think, in the animation viewer. You can see how the model is kind of freaking out a little bit. Then you have the middle, which is the majority of her attack, and then you have the end of the attack if she goes to stay standing, or the end of the attack if she decides to keep moving immediately after attacking. So basically, most people are not going to be seeing this animation very much in-game because people know to stutter step. But there is a lot of good animation going on with Qiyana, even if we have to peruse it in a somewhat disjointed format. So, let's have a look at her basic attack animation first, because that showcases a lot of what's going on with her, really. So, the basic attack is like, she spins around, she lashes out with the chakram, and then she spins around her hand again, ready to do a second attack, or to, resolve to her walk animation, or resolve to her standing animation. So let's take a look at what's going on here. And this is where it gets fun for me, because as you know, I love squash and stretch, I love smearing, and what we're going on here is a lovely combination of both. So take a look at how the movement goes, right? You have this, and again, we can't see the start of this attack, which is a bit of a pity, but we have this extreme distortion of the chakram, and you can kind of see how her arm completely desynchronizes from the weapon, because actually having the arm perfectly connected to the weapon isn't as important as you might think. And you can see how the distortion of the chakram is being used to enhance the snapping feeling of the weapon hitting, and then it returns to its original shape around here, just in time for her to do a twirly around bit with it. And the thing I really love about Qiyana's animation is the care and attention that's been put into her relationship with her weapon, which is so important for her animation, which is something I really wish that they actually tackled in the lore, is why she's using this thing. Like, why is this thing important to her employing her powers in combat? Like, does it have a ceremonial function? Is it symbolic somehow? Is it like a legendary weapon shape that gives her access to some kind of prestige? What does it do for her character? Because in terms of her character, this weapon is just sort of kind of there, and is never really extensively explained. Now, take a look at her left leg here as she stretches. You can see how the animator has made a very clever decision as she's shifting out of this extremely dynamic low pose, right? See how the front foot stays planted even as she has to stretch the entire leg to make it happen. And then when she chooses to retract the leg, you can see how it kind of rubber-like, it kind of snaps together again. And that, when you watch that in motion, you can kind of see how that drag gives her the whole slide back as she's preparing to deal with the momentum of the weapon a different feel to it. Like, it gives it that little bit of a snappy rhythm that makes her movements feel more dance-like. That I really like these little decisions that the animators make when it comes to figuring out how the character's supposed to move. And let's take a look at how she, spins into the walk, right? Something that's clever, and something that's worth noting about Qiyana's animations, is that when you have this animation, right, this midpoint of the attack, this frame right here, this ending of the attack, she has to be in a pose, and the motion and the movement of the character has to be controlled in such a way that she can resolve this pose into the run cycle, and that she can also resolve it into the standing cycle. And that's deceptively difficult to do, because you have to think through the animation from two perspectives. The first perspective being, how does she continue her motion into forward momentum? And the second one, how does she calm all of her motion into a stationary state? And I love how the animator has animated Qiyana's feet. There's so much expression in them. See how when she swings her foot around? See that little swipe upwards of the toes as she regains her balance? Because here she's still resolving the rotational motion of the chakram, and you can see that little swipe of the toes up, indicating that she's regained control of herself. She's no longer being pulled forward by momentum. She has control over it, and then she raises the foot up like that. Instead of putting it down and planting herself, she remains in a somewhat unstable one-legged position, which leaves her ready to do more, which I really enjoy that. Like, a lot of the, and again, here you can see the start of an attack animation. This one is better resolved in the Timo tool, I think. And I really quite like this one. See how she's leading the chakram with her foot. right? Instead of using, and this is what I mean when I like the physical relationship that Qiyana has with her weapon, because in her animations in-game, they emphasize a lot how easy and how familiar she is with the weapon that she's using. She doesn't even need to look at it most of the time. She has complete control over it as she spins a chakram around her foot and then uses starts that pirouette, basically, where she carries the rotational movement of her body. You can see how she's twisting everything, preparing to swing, and how the weapon is kind of trailing behind. You can see how when she starts the swing around, the left side of the weapon stays stationary, basically. Like, it doesn't really move from its spot, but the right side begins to stretch and pull. And by the time the swing is in motion, you get this wonderful smearing animation. Right? Again, I love these distorted stretch frames or poses, because they're just so lovely and goofy to look at. Which then resolves into, and again, here it's put together a little bit better, into this lovely piece of animation. Like, this is just absolutely masterful, in my opinion. Look at that. Look at what's going on with her. So here, this is the pose we recognize from the beginning of the attack. She swings it out, and here's the hit. You can see how it's like a rubber band snapping. It just kind of thunk. And then it just stays in the air for a second as it receives the equal and opposite Newton's third law reaction backwards. And she lets it fall, and then she grabs it with her foot, completing the pirouette with this lovely, awkward pose, frog leg pose. Which she then, here we transition into the cool superhero landing pose, right? Where you can see all of her weight coming down. She catches it with her left leg. Whoom. And this is where the animation gets brilliant, because she starts the motion with her leg. She catches it with her foot, brings it back. Then she brings her arm up, continuing, like, the motion of the chakram is completely unbroken the whole way through. And then she continues to spin it around her arm, where it gets to do a single rotation. She brings it down over her head, and she's into her ready pose. Like, that's so good! That's such a good way to resolve it. And of course, this one also has a resolution into her walk cycle, which I'm having a little trouble placing exactly where this happens in terms of, like, the rest of the attack animation, because it's basically supposed to happen after this point. So it must be from, I think it's from here, basically, that it's supposed to transition into her doing a front flip. And again, note the relationship with the weapon, the easy breezy method by which she handles it, rather than, I think I'm wrong. I think this is here. Once she has flipped the weapon out, there we go. Then she resolves into this. Rather than catching the weapon with her foot and twirling around like we saw before, she does a front flip, and she kicks the weapon over. Like, she doesn't make perfect contact with her feet, but she makes the chakram twirl in the air and sort of spins it over her own body while she spins below it, and she bounces over. And I love the bounce on that handspring. You see that? Like, how she goes forward, she lands, and then while her legs are continuing the rotational motion, you can see how they never really stop rotating around her axis. She does this little motion, that little bounce right there, which then gives her the spring to get back up. And you can see again how the artist is stretching the character model just a little bit when it gives you that extra snappy motion to the character. And I love the way she lands. Like, look how she lands on one leg. She lands on her right leg. You know, transitions into this is basically the starting pose for a runner, right? Like, this is where you see the runners on the starting blocks. And so her body up here is still continuing that forward motion, which brings her into this leaning forward pose that she then pushes against with her feet in order to set off into the run, to get that jump on the run, and then she goes into her run cycle. Like, it's so good. I love the animation on Qiyana. For everything that I criticize about the other departments at Riot, I will never get sick of just how good their animators can be at times, because they are just amazingly good. Let's see, there was one more thing I wanted to take a look at before we end. This video is getting quite long enough already. Was it, no, it wasn't that one. It was the wall version. This is their rock version, I think, of her spell. This is her Q, I believe. Look at this. Again, like, the start of this animation, I think, is a little bit awkward. Like, it's a little bit, but I do love you can see how she starts from this position where she pulls the weapon back, and then the backwards momentum of the weapon pulls her, and she's stepping forward, storing up all that kinetic energy, basically, and then she slings it forward. And the real meat, like, the real mwah moment of this animation comes right here. Because again, see how she uses the momentum of the weapon. She swings it forward, it begins a motion down around this way. And then, as she completes the swing, she lets the momentum of the swing carry her body forward into this leaping pose. And then she spins the weapon above her head, lands on one foot, and then she's ready to get right back into her run cycle once again, as you can see here. Or, indeed, to get into her idle pose. But it's the into the walk cycle is the thing that I really enjoy about this. I love how much care was put into making sure that her animation set always feels fluid. Like, she uses an ability, whether she stops or she walks, she has an animation that makes that transition completely fluid. I think this is her ultimate? Yeah, I'm pretty sure this is one version of her ultimate. And here, again, a lovely bit of squash and stretch. See that? You see how, again, when she's throwing her weapon forward, the back part of the weapon delays. It stays in place as long as it can, while the front part of the weapon moves forward as quickly as it can, which gives you this lovely snapping motion. You can see twing, which makes the weapon feel a little rubbery once you're noticing it, but in the actual, it gives it that lovely sense of stored up power. Oh, right, no, the final thing I wanted to take a look at was it her taunt where she does the thing? Let me see. Yes, it was the taunt. This is the one that really made me pay attention to her relationship with her weapon. So we have the taunt, right? And I've always felt like there are times when League of Legends character animation, because you're looking from a top-down perspective and you're looking from a good distance away, right? That there's a level of clunkiness and awkwardness in some of the motions of, especially of the head and of the specifics of the hands, because they often don't bother animating each individual finger because they don't read well from this distance. Like, you can't even see finger animations from this distance, so why bother? Which comes across a little bit awkwardly in like a close-up like this one, where she has to do really exaggerated gestures in order for it to read. But I love that casual relationship where she puts the weapon down, leans a little bit of her weight on it, right? As she does her taunt, and then as we get to the end here, she tosses her hair back, delivers the final punchline of her insult, shakes her head, and then, look at this, that little motion right there, that is so golden to me, at least. I love those little, because this was the motion that told me the animator was paying attention to Qiyana's relationship with her weapon. They were making sure that when they were animating her, she feels completely, utterly, confidently at ease with the weapon that she's using, which is really important for her characterization. Remember, this is someone who's extremely hyper-competent and who is desperate for recognition for that competence, so it makes sense that she would probably have put in a bunch of practice with this thing. And it's that little kick right there that she's not even looking at, right? She just kicks it. She knows exactly where the blade is. She knows what it's going to do when she kicks it, so she uses that to displace the weight in order to get it into a position that she likes more. And it's that kind of irreverent, playful relationship with the weapon that's really, I know it's a tiny small thing that really shouldn't be worth gushing over so much, but it's the kind of thing I love. I love those little moments of acting, those little moments of characterization, of gesture, that implies an inner life in the character. Like, this is someone who actually has a life relationship with this thing that she's carrying around. It matters to her, which again makes it so much more of a pity that her relationship with the weapon isn't clarified in the lore. Why does she use that thing when in the lore that we have, it's never mentioned as an important part of her powers? The animator clearly didn't think so. The animator thinks that this thing is incredibly important to her. So, yeah, but that little kick, that little casual, just like bonk, move the weapon into. I love that so much. I also like the way that, like, you see the rotation of her hips. You see how that little twist happens there, and that naturally leads into the twist of her knee, getting her foot back on the ground. I love that so much. It's so good. Anyway, that's quite enough gushing. Qiyana, a character with whom I have plenty of criticisms. I have plenty of problems with her. I have plenty of things about her character design I wish were different and better. But as usual, I can't put a finger on the animation. It's just so damn good. Anyway, if you've enjoyed me recounting Qiyana's lore and talking a little bit about her character concept and then gushing over her animation for like 20 minutes, well, you can hit the like button down below. You can hit the comment button, subscribe button, yada, 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 all that other YouTube stuff. I hate asking people to do that. It's boring and it's annoying and you hear it from every single goddamn YouTuber. But it is genuinely important to us. We need those numbers to go up because that's how YouTube channels work, unfortunately. So if you want to do that, I'd be very grateful. If you want to support the channel more directly, then there is Patreon for that, which is a subscription service. You sign up for like $1 a month, whatever you want. And there's a few rewards over there. You get to vote on some things. I have a QA vlog thing that I do with questions from viewers where you can ask me anything you want. And if you have a character design that you'd like me to take a look at, that's the $10 tier. I'll do a monthly post where I take a look at and do some commentary, some feedback on character designs that people send me. Whether that's something you've come up with on your own or whether it's just a character design that you like that you want me to just write a paragraph about, then I will do that every month for people on the $10 tier. If you don't want to sign up for a monthly subscription, believe me, I understand the feeling. I have plenty of monthly subscriptions already. I have tip jars down in the description where you can give me like a $3 tip or a $1 tip or whatever you want to say, hey, you made a video and you talked for a long time without shutting up ever. You should have some money for that. Thank you. I would be very grateful for that as well. As I say at the end of my videos, and what I say to myself to try and justify begging for money like this is that even $1 matters to a content creator like me. And it seems often that $1 doesn't really make a difference. It doesn't make a difference to a lot of people, but to content creators like me, it genuinely does, because $1 is the same as 1,000 views on a video, easily. Like, it's not even close. And online content creators who rely on ad revenue, $1 means a hell of a lot more than you think. So whether it's me or whether it's someone else, if there's a content creator online whose work you enjoy, please consider supporting them directly by a one-time donation, by a subscription, whatever the case may be. If you can support a content creator directly, please do, because we would much rather work for our viewers than the advertising algorithms. So, consider that. If you can't do that, or if you just don't want to, believe me, I understand. I know what it's like to be broke. It's been my permanent existence for like most of the last 8 years, but less so these days because I have support from people online, which frankly blows me away. Anyway, it's enough. It is enough that you have watched the video this far and put up with my rambling. I am in an exceptionally rambly mood today. I don't know what it is. It must be that Punch-Out run, which you should go and watch. Holy crap, like blindfolded. Punch-Out blindfolded. Don't you want to go see that? Go find the Games Done Quick YouTube channel. They'll upload it. I'll put a link in the description. That's what I'll do. Did I have something else I was supposed to do at the end of it? Oh, right. If you haven't enjoyed the video, I should point this out as well. There's a dislike button down below that you can click on if you didn't enjoy the video. But if you want to, you can click on it. Sure, you can just click on it normally. Like a basic person, like someone who hasn't practiced. Or like, just hear me out here, you could go into training. Like, you could practice that dislike button game really, really hard, right? Really just nail the location of them and really like speed click and really know where exactly it is. And you could train for that, and you could learn to do it blindfolded, and you could show up at next year's GDQ and you could be like, I'm gonna speed run YouTube. I'm gonna dislike all the videos on the entire website. Speed run, time me. And you could set a world record for that, and you could bring in tons of money for charity. Have you ever thought about that? No, you just sit here clicking dislike buttons normally like a loser instead of doing it in a cool way, like the speedrunners, like Salard, who did a blindfold. I really can't get over that goddamn blindfolded run, can I? Thank you very much for watching.